I hate nostalgia. Yeah, I said it. I'm not talking about that recent trend where shows and games throw in a bunch of references to old pop culture, because I absolutely love that shit, and I wasn't even close to being around back then. No, I mean I hate the feeling of nostalgia. And I'll tell you why. There's not that many things that I'm actually scared of. There's only really spiders, heights, 2018 YouTube, umbrellas, spiders, the ocean, and social interaction. Oh, and the eel from Mario 64. All of those are perfectly rational and you can't tell me otherwise. But the one thing that actually genuinely scares me is the passing of time. And what I mean by that specifically is time that I won't be able to get back. Now, I know that might sound a little ridiculous because I sound like a teenager already having a midlife crisis, but I hate knowing that the time that passes are moments that I'll never be able to experience again. Man, they got really depressing. Okay, back to bad jokes. This is why I don't like nostalgia. I don't like to dwell on the past because even though I very much appreciated it, most of it, it just makes me feel kind of miserable. Not in a, God, things were so much better back then when you damn kids didn't have your iPhone, but more along the lines of, man, I wish I was 10 again. So today, I wanted to go back on everything I just said and discuss my personal experiences with nostalgia, and maybe even throw in a few embarrassing childhood stories in there as well. Wait, what do you mean technically I'm still a kid? Look, it's my channel, I do what I want, okay, I'm a big boy now. I don't know if I'm all that great as a storyteller, but I'm gonna give it my best shot anyway. Who knows, you just might find yourself feeling nostalgic while watching this. Don't get your hopes up, I highly doubt it, but you never know. I don't think I necessarily had the most exciting childhood, but I am very thankful for the one I had. Some kids went skateboarding, dude, or went to Disneyland every second week, while I sat at home and played Minecraft. And you know what? I don't regret it a goddamn second of it. Once again, let's just pretend for a moment here that I'm like 80 or something and wistfully looking back on my life as I slowly wither away, wishing that I had made my mark on the world. I only just missed being a 90s kid, so I was born during the very awkward phases of the early 2000s where the coolness of the 90s was wearing off and everyone was just really confused. So a lot of the movies and TV shows that I have fond, fuzzy memories of haven't exactly aged well or are considered classics. They're just embarrassing. My childhood basically consisted of this. Yep, you're damn right I separated it into categories. The concept of actually sitting down and watching TV is so foreign to me now, because TV kind of sucks. Back then though, when I didn't have the choices of either Netflix or some shitty ad-ridden website, I had to actually watch things on TV or watch the DVD. It became a routine for me. Wake up at 8 AM every single Saturday, plant myself on the couch, and await the glorious flood of cartoons that followed. Transformers Animated, Ben 10, Dinosaur King, Del Toro Quest, Sonic X, Bakugan, Dragon Ball Z. Now I know why I'm such a weeb. I never had cable like any of the cool kids, so I was stuck with all of the bargain bin cartoons like Cyber Chase or Kid vs. Cat and Dragon Booster and No, that's all I can remember. When it wasn't Saturday though, I had to rely on my massive collection of DVDs and VHS tapes, which I watched over and over and over again. You guys know what VHS tapes are, right? I had the entire series of Ben 10 on DVD though, so I was like, pretty cool, you know. Among my favorite VHS tapes that I still own include Construction Site, Dig and Dug with Daisy, aka the Mario Brothers if they actually did their job, Mr. Men and Little Misses, which is still the greatest show ever made, There Goes a Motorcycle? What? Come with motorcycle riders Becky and Dave and discover the thrill and excitement of motorcycle. And then there was ABC favorites with such classics as Bananas in Pajamas, Noddy, Johnson and Friends, Postman Pat, and Brum. Hey, off topic a bit, but does anyone remember JJ the Jet Plane? That show was fucking terrifying. Then there was this thing. You guys know Tonka trucks, right? Yeah, well, they made a movie out of it. I'm not sure if I'm ready to relive the memories of this movie, so I'm just gonna put it back where it came from. I had this little TV in my room that had a little DVD player, and I have so many memories of just staying up late and watching movies that I had rented from Blockbuster. Before that stopped being a thing. Sorry, I'm gonna get emotional. My parents used to let my brother and I watch The Simpsons for some reason, and we loved it so much that it eventually turned into some form of a reward system. Eat dinner, have a shower, finish in time to watch some Simpsons, and then go to bed. My life was very exciting. then there was the early 2000s internet. I could do a whole video on this damn thing. There's just so much to talk about. Thankfully, I was young enough to bypass the dark ages of AOL and dial-up, but what I got probably wasn't all that much better. Much to the dismay of my parents, who probably would have rather their son become a professional tennis player or a professional swimmer or anything that was actually productive, I instead decided to spend my time sitting at what was quite possibly the worst desk setup ever conceived by man. I divided my time on flash game websites, browsing endless amounts of wiki pages for reasons I still don't understand, and watching way too many videos on the not yet corrupt YouTube. This was all on a computer that was slower than an intoxicated snail, but back then I just didn't know any better. YouTube back then was super interesting, even though back then was only like 5 or 6 years ago. Oh man, I'm old. This was in the days of Pokemon theme song Revenge and Nyan Cat and Numa Numa and This Is Sparta remixes and in these ancient times, 1 million subscribers was actually special. Ray William Johnson and Smosh were the most subscribed on YouTube, and I idolized the likes of Tobuscus and Annoying Orange. Yes, really, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. YouTube in its infancy was so full of original and passionate creators, and as time passed, I knew that I had to try it myself. I had no idea how to video edit or even create a YouTube account, but god damn it, I wanted to do it. My parents wouldn't let me until I was the legal age because the internet was dangerous and scary and that's complete bullshit, because anyone that uses YouTube knows that it's like 90% 12-year-olds. So my YouTube journey was still pretty far away at this point. And honestly, I'm really glad my parents said no, because God knows what atrocities I would have uploaded to the internet. Oh wait, I dedicated a lot of my time to watching Super Mario 64 Game Shark videos, back when this clip was actually funny, and watching some dumbass stick figure animations. This, to me, was peak comedy. I owe a lot to the hours I spent watching YouTube, because without it, I definitely wouldn't be here today. Kid me would be so proud of what I've accomplished. Oh wait. The Flash games though, now that is where the nostalgia really comes from. A lot of you probably know Club Penguin because that was the thing when it got shut down last year. I'll never forget you penguin girlfriend who invited me to her igloo one time. But does anyone remember Pop Tropica? That game was amazing. There was a ton of shit like that back in the day with Moshi Monsters and Neopets, but to me, Pop Tropica was the king. I spent so many classroom lunchtimes just playing this goddamn game. Do you guys fucking remember mini-clip games, guys? Oh my god, I'm having a friggin' nostalgia-gasm just thinking about it. Flash games were like oxygen to me. It became tradition where I just hop on the computer and spend way too many hours just playing some stupid car game or whatever. They were so simple, but the nostalgia's there because I spent so much time with them. I used to play these stupid freaking McDonald's games that I got in a Happy Meal or something. I swear they exist, I just can't find them anywhere on the internet. It's definitely not that one, and it's not that one, and it... So as it turns out, they're actually not McDonald's games. They're called Jumpstart or something, and McDonald's just published them. I always did wonder why there were no hamburgers in them. You lied to me, Ronald. Why? I do miss the old internet. I wouldn't say I wanted to replace the fantastic and flawless internet we have now, but I do miss the simplicity of it. Seriously though, what the hell was up with old internet memes? Wheezy, that shit was hysterical back in the day. Memes nowadays are so much more complex and interesting and terrible. Back then, I used Internet Explorer and thought it was okay because I didn't know any better. My parents somehow managed to add like 1 billion more toolbars every single time I used the computer. Ah, good times. Now the video games, where the nostalgia hits you like a goddamn truck. Personally, I grew up with the 6th and 7th generation consoles, which are objectively the best ones. The PlayStation 2, man. That startup noise will never leave me. You got Sonic Gems Collection, The Simpsons Hit and Run, Cars the mother flippin' game. I didn't have any of the good games, but goddamn I loved what I had. Does anyone remember the iToy player? No? Just me? This stupid thing was like the precursor to the Kinect, but it was still terrible. A few years later, the Nintendo Wii came along and blessed me with some of my favorite games of all time. Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Wii Sports, Super Mario Galaxy. Every time I boot up my Wii, it reminds me of the times I spent exploring the Wii shop or playing with the abominations of Miis I'd created. They're simple, but such happy memories. But before I had all that, I had what was known as a VTech. Yeah, a VTech V-Smile. Wow, well, no wonder no one knows what this thing is. The console sucked, but I remember there was this one Spider-Man game that I used to play all the time. I was just so mesmerized by it. The problem with the VTech V-Gyno was that it was really limited when compared to the other, much better consoles that all of the cool kids had. Mum. I hate to admit it, but it was probably this thing that introduced me to video games in the first place, so, thanks. My dad used to own a Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis for you lucky-ass Americans who actually know how to name things. I mean, we used to play the original Sonic the Hedgehog together, which is still what I consider to be the root of where my Sonic the Hedgehog obsession began. Neither of us could ever beat it, though. Now I know where I get my terrible gaming skills from. There are some things that, no matter how many times I play them, will bring me back all the way 10 years ago, like, specifically, Super Mario 64. And, as I said, I'm still just as terrified of that fucking eel as I was all the way back then. I'm serious. I have a very unique relationship with Super Mario 64, as I've talked about on this channel before. I should be nostalgic for the DS version, which I spent hundreds of hours with as soon as I got my DS, but for some reason it's the original N64 version that brings me back. Back to a time I wasn't even around in. I think it might have been because some family friends of mine owned an N64 and I used to watch them play the classics, while I got to sit there and admire all of the pretty colors and the bad graphics. I finally bought myself an N64 last year, and getting to play the original Mario 64 for the first time gave me feelings that I can't even describe, nor did I even know existed. If there's anything in this video that I've talked about that I missed the most, it was playing with toys. I missed the simplicity of allowing my imagination to run amok as I imagined my action figures went on epic, life-changing adventures. Even though in reality it was actually just like,
"This ends here, Megatron. Optimus, prepare for your die."
From a young age, I was a collector. I loved toys so much because there was just so many things that you could do with them. I totally still blame my parents for falling for the young boy stereotypes and assuming that I'd be into cars and dinosaurs and guns and stuff, but they were totally right. When I graduated from Hot Wheels, I moved into the big boy leagues, and that for me was Lego. Not only were they cars and trucks, they were buildable cars and trucks, and more importantly, destructible cars and trucks. Oh yeah. Races became a lot more fun when pieces could go flying off everywhere, leaving dead, mangled Lego corpses all over the ground. In hindsight, I was a pretty messed up kid. It didn't take me long after that to discover the Holy Grail. Bionicle. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I think Bionicle was where everything went from hobby to obsession. To go hand in hand with Bionicle was Transformers, which was equally fascinating to me. I mean, I was already obsessed with giant robots, but I mean, giant robots that turn into cars? When we eventually moved house, I suddenly had this massive area to play around with, and it didn't take long for this barren, deserted landscape to soon look like this. Parents hated us for it. As my brother and I collected more and more toys, our small collection eventually turned into an empire. I honestly don't want to know how much money was spent on all of this, and I'm sure my parents really don't either. From here, our imaginations ran absolutely rampant. We had zombie outbreaks, devastating conflicts and wars, invaders from other dimensions, Bumblebee teaming up with Gresh and Power Rangers fighting against the evil forces of Megatron, Black Phantom, and I missed a man. We had Bionicle and Hero Factory fighting Transformers and Ben 10 aliens, which, in hindsight, were totally race wars. Just looking at these things is bringing the memories back. I know I've already been going on about it for a while, but I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of how much time I spent being an idiot and just pretending to bring these action figures to life. If there's anything that I miss about my younger years, my much, much younger years, it's this. And I feel kind of shitty about how nowadays they just sit in boxes, waiting for someone to eventually play with them. If Toy Story is anything to go by, then I'm a really horrible person. I aim to put them all up on display eventually because I'm still really proud of them, but I'll never be able to recapture that magic of orchestrating these big adventures ever again. Without looking like a complete dumbass, that is. I remember I used to sit in this little corner at the back of my room and film these dumbass videos with a shitty camera. Remember how I said when my parents wouldn't let me use YouTube? Well, they may have been onto something. I got rid of most of the evidence, but I still have a few clips here and there.
It's the Armadillo Show.
You know, maybe this was better off destroyed. One of my favorite memories that's pretty recent in comparison to the other stuff I've talked about in this video is when one day I decided to enter a competition to win a bunch of free toys. In Australia, we have plenty of options when it comes to totally hip and cool kids magazines. Yeah! My two favorites were, oh god, it's worse than I remember, D-Mag and K-Zone. For my birthday one year, I ended up getting a subscription to both, and because of that, I still have way more issues than I know what to do with. One particular month, however, when both monthly issues arrived, I discovered they both had competitions for winning some Transformers toys. The requirement to enter wasn't much. I don't remember the K-Zone one, probably because I was too caught up with the shitty name, but I remember for the DMAG one, I had to go to their website and give in like 10 words or less who my favorite Ninja Turtle was and why. Now, I knew nothing about the Ninja Turtles aside from their names, and I also had no idea how that was relevant to Transformers, so I just wrote some crap about Michelangelo. For the record, Donatello's the coolest one. But you also had to enter your age. Now, I figured the demographic for something called DMAG and K-Zone had to be like 2, so I put my age as way lower than it actually was at the time. Low enough to be impressive, but high enough to be believable. This was 2013, by the way, and my logic was that if I lowered my age, it'd make my verbose work of art look just that much more impressive. Bam, send, now we wait. I never entered any competitions from these things before because I knew they weren't gonna work. It worked. And not only 1, but 2 in the same month. I got all of these free toys because I wrote some dumb shit about Michelangelo. DMAG, K-Zone, you guys may have some of the dumbest names I've ever heard, but you freaking delivered, and you made that day one of the greatest in my life. Honestly, probably won't even be topped. As I got older, I spent more and more time indoors, as, you know, anyone who's like me and completely inept at sports would, which is not the fault of my parents, because they tried repeatedly to try and get me to do something with my life, but it's that knowledge and passion that the early internet and video games inspired in me that led to my fascination with pop culture and my love of video making that I now have. Still though, my younger self cursed me with an encyclopedia-like knowledge of Sonic the Hedgehog lore, which will never, ever be useful, so Thanks me. Any one of you guys ever have a Sonic quiz night, hit me up, alright? During the breaks between school, my parents worked a lot, so I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, which I have really fond memories from as well. My dad's mum and dad had their own little room at the back of their house, and the desk there was where I created my old Transformers comics I've talked about before, where every single month I'd just go there and dim the lights, grab some pencils out, and scroll some horrible abominations. My older cousin also installed a computer at some point, and though it was kinda garbage, he was also nice enough to download a shit ton of my personal drug, Flash games. And so I sunk way too many hours messing around with things like the Powder Toy and Pivot Stick Figure Animator. God, I made some horrible messes on that thing. When I was a bit younger, I also used to play outside in their garden with a bunch of trucks and digger toys. I recall at one point I buried a Hot Wheels car in the dirt, intending to get it back at the end of the day, and then forgot. For a year. We destroyed the home of several innocent bugs who were living in it when I finally remembered to dig it up. Every single year, my family and I used to head up to our beach house in the more rural area, and caught up with my auntie, uncle, and cousins and all that, and we used to celebrate the new year together. Back then, staying up until 12 in the morning was super cool and rebellious and not at all sad and kind of bad for my health. We'd play games like SingStar, where I discovered that being shit at singing ran in the family, and then we'd watch the fireworks together. Eventually, we stopped our yearly trips, but we've been back by ourselves since then, and it's been nostalgic for me every time. Nostalgia brings with it this comforting sense of familiarity. It's like revisiting an old friend. And I gotta admit, there's few things in life that bring me as much joy as rediscovering something that I used to love religiously as a kid. Unless it's complete shit, that is. As I said at the beginning of this video, nostalgia pandering has been a topic on many people's minds ever since media like Stranger Things and Sonic Mania have been reminiscent of the 80s and 90s and cramming a bunch of our childhood down our throats. Hey! Remember this? You like this, right? A lot of people think this is lazy and nothing more than a cash grab, but to be honest, I really like it, at the very least when it's done well. Nostalgia happens because we form attachments with the things that we grow up with, and it's why we hold them so dearly. But enough about that. You want to see a funny picture of me dressed up as Mario? Nostalgia just makes you realize how much time has passed. How long ago those memories were, and that's really why I take issue with it. It makes me want to live in the past again instead of enjoying the present, which honestly is pretty great. I mean, I can play 17 plus games now, so take that, childhood me. I think I exaggerated a bit in the beginning. I don't hate nostalgia. I guess hate is a strong word. I just thought it would make for a snappy intro. Technically, my childhood's not over yet, and it's not like as soon as I become an adult, everything's gonna suck and I'll never have fun again. It'll just mean that I'll have to be playing with Bionicles while doing my taxes. When I was much younger, I figured that in a couple of years I would have grown out of things like Sonic and Lego, but hey, here I am, talking about it to a bunch of strangers on the internet. And you know what? I couldn't be any more proud. I can't wait to be like 40 and still wasting my money on toys. I hope this video was as enjoyable for you to watch as it was for me to make. It sure was a trip down memory lane. A very tragic, kind of pathetic trip down memory lane. Nostalgia is not a bad thing. It's just an important reminder to enjoy the things you have at the moment, because before long you'll be looking back on it in a few years and wishing you'd appreciated it more. As for me, well, I've still got a long and fulfilling life ahead of me, so if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go lie down in bed and watch Netflix while eating ice cream for 10 hours, so I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!